And that is that at 9:55 on August 22nd, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department responded to a call that there had been a stabbing on a light rail train. They located the victim, who had been suffered stab wounds in her neck, on her hand. They found a pocket knife on the scene, and they apprehended the defendant at the rail stop. Now, much more recently, the surveillance video was obtained from the train, and that's really what gave us the basis for federal charges here. And the surveillance video shows Iryna Zarutska getting on the train by herself in her work uniform, sitting down by herself in a row that just happened to be in front of DeCarlos Brown Jr. Approximately 4 minutes later, Mr. Brown pulled out a pocket knife. You see him on video open that pocket knife, and he stabbed her 3 times in the neck. He then walked off the train with blood dripping from the knife. This is obviously a horrible, horrible situation. But this is why federal statutes exist. They exist to take care of situations like this because no one should sit in fear when they sit on the light rail. If you sit in fear on the light rail, you sit in fear when you walk around the streets of our center city like I do every day. You sit in fear when you go to our parks like I do with my daughter every weekend. You sit in fear at our sporting events, our entertainment venues, at concerts, at restaurants, at our museums. These are all the things that we have worked as a city so hard to build. We built this city. Companies have come here in droves. More than 150 people move here every day. We built a city that people want to live in, but we can lose that all if we allow violent crime like this to go on in our streets. And I'm here to tell you, the federal government is going to save our city from that.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. I'm not only sad and disgusted, I'm so angry about this. Please hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you with us every single episode. Today in particular, I am going to tell you why I'm so angry. You just heard from Russ Ferguson, the U.S. Attorney from the Western District of North Carolina, really emotionally describing not only the crime that happened several days ago now, but his reaction to it and why the federal government is now getting involved. And the bottom line, folks, is this. This guy had been let out of jail or arrested and let go, cashless bail, whatever you want to call it, 14 times before this murder happened. 14 times. So the state, the local judges, they can't seem to get a handle on crime and on how to treat, whether it's a mentally ill person or just a career criminal who does not belong on the streets. They can't get their arms around it. So that's why federal statute is being looked at for this crime. Let's get this guy off the streets once and for all. Now, there's an FBI agent at this press conference Tuesday as well. His name is James Barnacle. And he talks about how the system has failed. Roll it, Misty.
Mr. Ferguson mentions this. The system has failed us in this case. There is no doubt. Everyone deserves to go about their daily lives, to get to work, to get to school, just across town without the fear of being attacked. We should live in a country and in a city where accountability, if you're convicted for a violent crime, is always paramount.
What a concept. Accountability. But these judges, and in one case, one of the judges said, just write us a note. Sign this paper that you'll return for a hearing, this and that. He signed it. You think he returned? No. This guy's mom wanted him locked up in some way, shape, or form and couldn't get it done. This was a dangerous person, but the mayor of Charlotte came out and said, we need to be sympathetic, empathetic to the mentally ill. What about that young woman? What about all the other crimes he committed? What about that? Why are they so sympathetic? It's suicidal empathy is what it is. The empathy toward the criminals. It just never ceases to amaze me. Now, this crime has gone from a crime in Charlotte, North Carolina to being a federal crime. And it may even get a hate crime tagged on there as well. And let's let them describe that. Go ahead and roll this, Misty.
That there's potential for other federal charges. Can you confirm that it maybe includes hate crime or racially motivated crime of some sort? Is that something that you are
That is you.
considering?
Looking into, yes, we're looking into every available charge in this case. If we find facts that this was gender motivated or race motivated, we will absolutely bring a federal civil rights charge in this case. If the facts don't show that, we won't. We're only going to bring a charge that the facts support. The investigation's ongoing. We think we very fairly have the facts for this charge, but we continue to look and we may add charges, and civil rights charges are certainly on the table.
You know why they want to add charges? To make sure this guy is put away. That is why. This crime was so heinous and so... Well, you hear from people in Charlotte now that are just, they don't want to get on that light rail. And during this press conference on Tuesday, these gentlemen said, we cannot tell you it's safe to get on the light rail. They were asked point blank, is it safe to ride the light rail? And they said, we can't tell you that. Because we'd like to say it's safe, but at this moment, we cannot say that it is. How sad is that? And yeah, you can say, well, come on, that exists in every big city. But should it? I mean, we taxpayers pay all this money to get these light rails and transportation and bus systems and all of that put into effect so that they can live prosperous, free lives, pursue the things that go to school, go to their jobs, whatever. And they pay the taxes to get these things built, but you can't make it safe for them? In fact, at one point they said, you know, these people, these are like moving homeless shelters and mental hospitals on wheels, these trains. And a lot of these people ride for free. Like, people aren't paying their fare, F-A-R-E. And they said if they would just collect the fare, we could probably pay for extra security. Wow, what a concept. But no, let's side with the criminals because maybe they belong to a marginalized class like mentally ill. Screw all the rest of you who are just trying to go live your lives. Doesn't matter. Now, I want to play this. Look, if you've seen the tape, I'm sorry. I'm going to show it to you again. If you haven't seen it, you may not want to watch this. We excluded the most, I think this clip doesn't have the most vicious part, but what's important is that you watch the sequence of events, and then the reason they're talking hate crime is because at the end of it, the stabber, whose name I'm not going to repeat, says, I got that white girl. So let's roll the tape. You see her getting on the train. For those of you just listening, she's sitting directly in front of the murderer. I know I'm supposed to say alleged, but we're seeing it right here on film. And after a couple minutes, he takes a pocket knife out. And he holds it there and stands up and viciously stabs her 3 times in the neck. We left that part out. Here he is walking away from it, but you can see all the blood dripping. Look at that. Blood dripping. And listen. Hope you could hear it. I got that white girl. I got that white girl. Now, we have a different angle, and we're going to show this to you again. This does not include the stabbing. It's just a different angle of the perpetrator. Listen closely. I got that white girl. Go ahead. He's taking off his sweatshirt, I think because it has blood on it. Not clear. I don't want to, I think, but that's not a fact. Now, that's why this tape has become so important, because there are a lot of details on there. And as all that was going on, she was in her seat dying a slow death. And if you've seen the video, you see that no one around her bothered to help. No one picked up a phone to call anyone. No one went to her aid. Some people just got up and left at the next stop, and she was sitting there dying of stab wounds. By the way, where are all the folks who keep the Ukraine flags in their, their ex little bio? Where are they today? She's Ukrainian. She was a war refugee here in the States. And her parents, when they spoke to the guys you heard from earlier, the federal prosecutor, etc., they said, we're going to get her home to you. And they said, no, she loved America. Bury her in America. Okay. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, detailed for you, in case you haven't heard, how this guy was even on the streets to begin with after all the previous crimes he had committed. And they weren't things like pickpocketing. Go ahead and roll it.
And shoplifting. Brown had previously served 5 years in prison for a robbery with a deadly weapon charge. And he had also forfeited bonds 3 different times, twice in 2014 and once in 2023. Despite all of this past documented criminal history, when Brown was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge, who I will add was a strong supporter of former Vice President Kamala Harris, released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. He simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing. Think about how crazy it is to ask a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise and come back again another day. This is madness. This monster should have been locked up, and Iryna should still be alive.
See, it is madness. I don't care what you think of this White House or anyone in this administration. Those are fact. This is madness. Here, sign right here. Promise that you'll come back. We know you've committed 14 other crimes, but just give us a promise. Give us your word, Mr. Criminal. Mr. Mentally unhinged criminal. Just promise. So cashless bail is now a big, big topic on this, because when you have these criminals that are going through this revolving door of these judges and courtrooms and jails, something like, odds are, the more they're out on the street, the more crime they're going to commit. Those are the odds. But you know what? It took ages for the mainstream media to even report on this story. And when they finally did, some of the commentators said the most insane things. Brian Stelter being one. Stick with me. I will play that for you next. But first, I want to tell you, I spent about 30 years on the sidelines, NFL, NBA, the Olympic Games. I was so fortunate to cover a ton of stuff, but I have learned that real expertise comes from consistency, not guesswork. That is why I'm excited to team up with Sports Corner Daily. Their free daily picks keep cashing, with analysis so clear even a casual fan can cash in. And with the NFL and all the big college matchups all underway now, all getting into this rhythm of this cadence of games all the time, there's no better time to get in on the action. And get this, my listeners get 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. So just text the word BETS, B-E-T-S, to 844-759-0281 or visit sportsdailypick.com to sign up in seconds. No cost, no risk, just smart winning insights. That's BETS, B-E-T-S, to 844-759-0281 or head to sportsdailypick.com. Don't wait. Get this season underway on a winning note. Okay, so as I mentioned, took the mainstream media like the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and USA Today, all these outlets, forever to even report on this crime. Some of them said, well, there's crime every day. But this was notable in that this was a Ukrainian war refugee making a new life in the United States. And the fact that this criminal had been let loose 14 other times. Okay, so how did CNN handle it? Oh, there's so much tape that I could play for you, but I'm going to get choosy. And we'll listen to Brian Stelter, this brainiac. He turned the story into this.
Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump asked about it yesterday when he was heading home from New York City. He didn't seem to know much about it. He said he would get briefed, and then today, Trump did know all about it. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention. And it's being used, as you said, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishments and more incarceration. I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who had been a repeat offender. And those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all of the cesspool kind of comments on social media.
All the cesspool kind of comments. I wonder how many he saw. And I wonder how many followers those postings had. You know, to try to make it sound like it's all a racist cesspool, that anyone who is aligned with the Trump White House has turned this into a racist MAGA issue. No, you know what? I think people are getting really tired, really fed up with all these liberal judges who keep letting these criminals roam the streets and endanger people. Here in Minneapolis, we had a shooting. We've had multiple shootings. I think we had 4 in 24 hours. Obviously, the one that got the most attention was the Annunciation Church. People are fed up with the level of crime and the lack of interest and engagement from the left on crime. And Brian Stelter hopes that the real questions don't get lost in the cesspool of racism. Come on, Stelter. I guess that's your gig. Fine. You do you. But if you want to talk, you want to really demonstrate the hypocrisy of the media on this. And I'm so glad people have brought this up and put these together. Remember the name Daniel Penny? This was the New York subway. Daniel Penny, a white guy, former Marine, who put a guy wielding threatening passengers, put him in a chokehold. The guy subsequently died. Daniel Penny went on trial publicly, criminally. So we've got here for you this side-by-side comparison of how the mainstream media handled Daniel Penny versus this crime here that we're talking about right now. Roll it, Misty.
Marine veteran Daniel Penny surrendered to authorities Friday morning to face a second-degree manslaughter charge.
5 to 15 years. Is that enough for someone who choked somebody out on the train and took their life?
Neely's supporters have been taking over streets and subway platforms, calling for an arrest.
Neely's supporters say the acquittal is rooted in racism.
Neely's supporters have been protesting, saying they wanted charges to be brought against Daniel Penny.
Bragg went on to say, quote, Jordan Neely should still be alive today.
And the person who killed him was not held responsible.
I don't know if he needed to hold him for 6 minutes.
I think it's a tragedy that Neely is dead today.
Multiple people testified that he didn't approach anyone in a threatening manner.
A lunatic just got up and started to viciously stab. She's just sitting there.
The silence from legacy media and Democrats is deafening.
This man was arrested 14 different times and was still able to walk free amongst us all.
Demonize the Good Samaritan. Demonize the Good Samaritan. But, you know, empathize with the criminal. I mean, that's clearly an ad, but I'm glad it reminds us of how differently these stories were covered. Now, according to the it girl of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett, the Democrat congresswoman from Texas, police don't exist to prevent crime. No. Listen to this.
I want to be clear that, law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening, per se.
Per se. What is she even talking about? Yeah, you know what? The reason that police patrol is to prevent crime. By the way, why was she sitting in front of all her shoes as if to show off her closet? And the woman in the middle was just nodding along. Yeah, Jasmine, you're right. They're not out to prevent crime. They're just out to solve it. No, you know who solves crimes? The investigators who come after the fact. There's a guy named Officer Dion Joseph from LA who's been on this show. He's a friend of this show. And he put out a lengthy post in which he said, I'm not going to call Jasmine Crockett any names or make fun of her or do anything to get extra clicks. I'm just going to respectfully disagree with her. I, as a police officer, worked to prevent crimes, because showing up after the fact and having to tell someone their loved one isn't coming home is awful. I'm left baffled, still angry, because we're here in America talking like this. This is insane. It's madness. It's insane. All right. The former Washington, D.C. chief of staff, or chief of police, forgive me, the chief of police, who is no longer the D.C. chief of police, but in 2023 he was. And he had quite a different take on all of this, one that I think is rather sane and commonsensical. Let's roll it, Misty.
Guns off the street. What we got to do, if we really want to see homicides go down, is keep bad guys with guns in jail, because when they're in jail, they can't be in community shooting people. So when people talk about what we're going to do different or what we should do different, what we need to do different, that's the thing that we need to do different. We need to keep violent people in jail. Right now, the average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times prior to them committing a homicide. That is a problem. That is a problem.
So correct. Because you know what? The first crime, you're just starting to push the boundaries. You get out. You get your clear jail-free card. So then you push a little bit further the next time. You go from shoplifting to armed robbery. We're going to let you out. So then the next time you push a little farther. And not only is it armed robbery, but you assault someone in the process. We're going to let you out. The boundaries aren't set, so they keep getting pushed. As he said, 11 times is the average number of arrests before someone commits homicide in Washington, D.C. That was just 2 years ago, folks. Not a lot has changed, except that the National Guard was brought in, and now I don't know how many days there have been since a murder. I'll say this, warning to New Yorkers. If you vote in this guy, Zoran Mamdani, you are signing up for trouble. If you care about safety, you should not vote for this man. Why? Well, while that very commonsensical chief of police said you got to lock bad people up, you got to lock violent people up, keep them off the streets, because the streets are where normal people just want to live their lives happily, safely, feeling confident. You don't release a bunch of bad people into that environment. You can prevent crime, Jasmine. You really can. But if you're Zoran Mamdani, you're saying this.
The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. I mean, Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700. And some of this also just has to look at the average stay on Rikers in the 90s was 50 days. Now it's more than 100. There are more than 1,500 people on Rikers who have been held there for more than a year. So I do think many of the reforms that have to be made are also reforms around the court system and ensuring that people are actually having.
Okay, so let's empty Rikers. Let's do that. Yeah, because I'm sure they're just staying there longer because people forgot about them. Not because they did anything wrong or bad or violent. You know, again, I'll just say it's so indicative, so demonstrative of the left, what the mayor of Charlotte said initially after this first happened. She said, thank you to the media for not releasing the video, because a woman was murdered on video that now anyone can see. Thank you for not showing that. And we have to empathize with the mentally ill. You know what? I do empathize with the mentally ill. But I really empathize with victims of crime. And this was not a mentally ill person who was docile or not dangerous. He was extremely dangerous. We're just not being honest. We're not being honest. We're trying to get all of this, equity and jail stuff. And I'm sure there is room for reform in the criminal. I know there's room for reform in the criminal justice system. But you don't just just like you don't open the borders, you don't just open the prisons and say, everybody go, we'll sort this out. It's stupid. We're being lazy. We're not looking at this in any serious kind of fashion. We're looking at it with a political lens, a social justice lens, instead of saying, you know what, let's look at the criminal, let's look at the crime and decide what the punishment should be. I don't care whether he's straight, gay, trans. I don't care whether he's black, white, Mexican. I don't care. It's the crime that we want to hold this person accountable for. Let's do that. Let's do that. All right. I usually try to end every day with something light and fluffy. And the best thing I found today on social media, I can't play it for you. So I'm going to direct you to it. And the reason I can't is because I'm afraid that YouTube will say I'm capitalizing on a Queen song and I have to pay for it, or they are going to freeze or suspend the video. So but I'm going to direct you to it. So you can go a number of places, X for sure, and just search Bohemian Rhapsody and look for, what do they call those? When a group of people start randomly appearing and singing from different parts of a public flash mob. Flash mob? Yes. Thank you, Misty. And this one, it takes a lot to get me to sit still for an entire, this one's like 5 minutes and 45 seconds, something like that. It's so good. It's so good. So I'm going to direct you to that. I'm also going to direct you, and I'm not very friendly with Ohio State fans because I support the Gophers in my house, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And, but I will say this about Ohio State football. That's another thing you can search on X. They had a very interesting, beautiful way to start the fall. And I was actually surprised. And I think it's a hopeful sign. So go search for those two videos for your feel good today. Because I'm just so angry. I'm so fed up with people forgiving criminals and everyone else having to pay the price. And feeling scared. So do me a favor. Be brave. Stand up for this stuff. Do good. Vote. And try to vote for things that sound commonsensical to you rather than just saying, I'm sticking in my corner. And we will see you next time. You can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.